You've arrived at CozySideAudio, where dreams begin with a story. Whether you're studying, journaling, or just chilling, this one's for you. If you vibe with this kind of content, go ahead and like, share, and subscribe for more.
CozySideAudio presents The Taste of Home Café, Chapter 1, The First Simmer. Alex Barnes had never imagined that silence could feel so loud. It filled the tiny cafe like a soft fog, settling into every corner, as if testing the new space before deciding whether it approved. The walls were still a little too white, the counters a little too smooth. Everything smelled faintly of drying paint and sawdust, and the lingering memory of the carpenter who had whistled old pop songs while installing the last shelf. But beneath all that, beneath the freshness of a new beginning, another scent threaded its way through the air. Simmering tomatoes, softened with onion and garlic, rounded out by a generous splash of cream, and brightened with the basil oil Alex had prepared the night before. This was the scent of hope, fragile, tentative, but real. The pot on the stove burbled in a comforting rhythm, like a slow heartbeat. Alex hovered over it, wooden spoon in hand, letting the steam rise and brush their face with warmth. It fogged their glasses and dampened the stray curls that always escaped their ponytail. They didn't wipe the condensation away immediately. It felt grounding somehow, like proof that they were really here, really doing this. The first day, Alex whispered, as if saying it too loud might scare it away. The taste of home cafe. Just 4 seats lined neatly at the counter, stools polished to a soft sheen, each one waiting like a quiet promise. No menus, just 1 dish a day. Whatever Alex felt inspired to make with whatever ingredients spoke to them each morning. A far cry from supply chain flowcharts and late-night engineering crises that consumed their life only months ago. They stirred the soup gently. You and me, we're starting over. The tomato bisque answered with a soft ploop, which Alex chose to interpret as encouragement. The morning stillness. At 7:42 a.m., sunlight spilled through the front window in narrow golden beams, making the dust motes dance. Alex checked the clock for the 100th time. Their hands fidgeted with the striped apron, a gift from their grandmother many years ago, back when the idea of being a chef was just a childhood dream. Funny how dreams could survive even when people didn't. Their grandmother's apron had always smelled faintly of soy and ginger, the residue of decades of cooking love into simple meals. Now, the fabric smelled mostly of detergent and nerves. Alex wiped their palms on the apron and walked to the front door. The open sign, freshly purchased from a quirky thrift store, lay on the counter. Their heart thumped hard against their ribs as they picked it up. It felt heavier than it should, as if the weight of possibility was stitched into the wooden frame. Okay, Alex breathed. Here we go. They hung the sign, unlocked the door, and stepped back. Nothing happened. Of course nothing happened. Who would barge into a new, barely advertised cafe the moment it opened? Most people were just starting their day, heading to work, walking dogs, ushering kids to school. Alex stood in the stillness, listening to the soft bubbling from the kitchen, and felt the odd mix of relief and disappointment swirl together like cream into broth. They went back to the stove, grabbed the spoon, and stirred. The first customer. At 8:13 a.m., the bell above the door jingled softly. Alex froze. A small, silver-haired woman stepped inside, peering around like she was entering a friend's home for the first time after years apart. She wore a lavender cardigan, her hair in a tidy bun. Her eyes crinkled kindly when she spotted Alex. "Oh, you are open. Good morning, dear?" Alex blinked, then snapped into action. "Good morning? Yes, I'm open. Welcome to the Taste of Home Cafe." She smiled, lowering herself carefully onto one of the counter stools. "I walk past here every morning on my way to the post office. Saw you working on the place these past few months. Thought I'd stop by today. First customer, I suppose?" "Yes," Alex said, cheeks warming. "You are. What's the menu like?" Alex hesitated. This was the moment, the part that either intrigued people or confused them. It's just 1 dish a day. Today is tomato bisque with basil oil made with tomatoes from Harvest Hill Farm." The woman beamed. Perfect. That sounds like just what my old bones need on a morning like this. Relief trickled through Alex like warm broth. They ladled a generous portion into a deep bowl and set it before her with a slice of toasted sourdough. Steam curled into the air, carrying hints of basil and roasted garlic. The woman closed her eyes as she inhaled. Oh my, smells like late summer in a bowl. Alex felt their insides soften. I hope you like it. She dipped the spoon in, tasted, and sighed long and slow. Heavens! This tastes like the soup my husband used to make every August. He had a little garden, grew tomatoes like nobody's business. This takes me right back. Her voice trembled. Just a little. Alex looked down at their hands, surprised by the sudden tightness in their throat. They hadn't expected cooking to feel quite so intimate, so revealing. Thank you, she said, wiping the corner of her eye discreetly. I'm Mrs. O'Malley, by the way, and I think your cafe is going to be something special. Alex swallowed. I hope so. Well, she said around another warm spoonful, you've managed to bring a memory back to life in just one bite. That's already more than most places accomplish in a year. An artist walks in. At 9:02 a.m., long after Mrs. O'Malley had left with a hug and a promise to return. The bell rang again. A younger person stepped in, maybe mid-20s, wearing a denim jacket covered in tiny enamel pins of cats, constellations, and mushrooms. Their dark hair fell into their eyes, which darted around the cafe nervously. Hi, they muttered. Are you still serving? Yes, Alex said warmly. Still serving all day until the pot runs out. Oh, good. The newcomer let out a breath. I'm June. I draw comics. I mean, not full comics, not published comics. Just, I draw. They winced. Sorry, that was too much information. I'm bad at introductions. Alex smiled. I think that was a lovely introduction. And welcome, June. I'm Alex. June sat at the counter, fiddling with the edge of their sleeve. I saw your sign outside a few days ago. I like places with small menus, less pressure. Not that I get stressed easily. Actually, I do get stressed easily, kind of all the time. King, Alex ladled soup into a bowl and set it gently in front of them. Then today's meal is for you. It's comfort food. June stared at the bowl as if it held something mysterious. It smells like something soft. Alex laughed softly. I'll take that as a compliment. As June ate, they relaxed visibly, shoulders lowering inch by inch like they were thawing in the warmth of the broth. After a while they spoke, voice quiet. I've been stuck in a creative block for months. Everything feels a little gray, like nothing I draw looks alive anymore. I understand that, Alex replied gently. I think I stopped feeling alive for a long time too. June looked up. You? But you're opening a cafe. That's so alive. Alex shrugged, a little embarrassed. It took everything I had to get here. Some days the fear still tries to crawl up my spine. June nodded slowly, thoughtfully. Then, maybe we're both trying to unstuck ourselves. They ate another spoonful, then grinned. This helps, by the way. I didn't think soup could be grounding, but it is. That warmed Alex more than the steam rising from the pot ever could. The taste of inspiration. When June left, after promising, with shy determination, to come back soon, Alex stood in the quiet cafe and let the silence settle again. But this time, it felt different. Not empty. Full. Full of stories and memories and soft confessions. Full of the quiet magic that seemed to hide in the steam of the soup pot, shimmering just at the edge of sight. Alex wasn't sure if they imagined it, but when sunlight hit the rising steam just right, it looked almost like shapes, circles that pulsed, drifted and dissolved like tiny spirits at play. Alex blinked, rubbed their eyes, and looked again. Nothing but steam. But the air still felt enchanted. Maybe that was enough. A slow afternoon. The rest of the afternoon passed in gentle waves. A few curious locals peeked in but didn't stay. One person bought a bowl to go. Another simply commented on how nice it was to have something new in the neighborhood. Between customers, Alex cleaned, rearranged, stirred the soup to keep it smooth. They hummed without meaning to. An old tune their grandmother used to sing, something about warm kitchens and safety. Every so often, they glanced at the 4 stools. Just 4. Plenty for now. They liked the intimacy of it. The way people seemed to open up when there were no crowds, no distractions, no walls between the cook and the eater. The counter was just a few feet long, and behind it, Alex's entire kitchen was visible. There was no stage curtain to hide behind. It was honest, vulnerable, but also comforting. When the last bit of soup in the pot made a soft gloop, Alex smiled. A first day completely sold out. Not that they had made a huge batch, but still, small victories mattered. Boom, closing time. At 4:56 p.m., Alex switched the sign to closed. Outside, the sky had begun to blush with the first hints of sunset. The basil plants in the window box swayed ever so slightly, as if waving goodnight. Alex cleaned slowly, savoring the quiet. The spoon clinked against the sink. The cutting board thudded softly as they placed it on the drying rack. The rhythm felt like a closing ritual. When everything sparkled, Alex stood in the middle of the tiny cafe and exhaled deeply. "You survived your first day," they said aloud. The space didn't answer, but it felt like it was listening. A soft breeze drifted through the open window, carrying the faint scent of earth and basil. Alex paused, eyes drawn to the plants. For a moment, just a moment, they thought they saw one of the leaves curl delicately, like a tiny green hand waving back. A trick of the wind, surely. Still, it made Alex smile. Walking home. Alex locked the cafe and stepped into the cool evening air. Their apartment was only a 5-minute walk away, but tonight the stroll felt special. The world seemed somehow sharper and softer at once. The streetlights glowing like lanterns, the distant hum of cicadas, the smell of someone grilling something smoky down the block. Alex felt lighter than they had in years. Food could heal. They'd known that once, long ago, but had forgotten. Today they remembered. As Alex walked, they imagined all the other dishes they might someday cook. Ramen with hand-pulled noodles, herb-roasted vegetables, miso salmon, lavender-scented desserts, curries bursting with color, and new faces who might walk into their little cafe with stories tucked between their ribs. Tomorrow, they'd visit the farmer's market at dawn. Maybe eggs would speak to them next, or maybe berries, or mushrooms. For the first time in a very long time, Alex felt the spark of inspiration stirring gently inside them, like a pot just beginning to simmer. A quiet realization. That night, lying in bed with soft moonlight drifting through the curtains, Alex replayed the day in their mind. The first customer, the first smile, the first memory revived by a single bite. They realized something important. Maybe food wasn't just nourishment. Maybe it was a language. And maybe this tiny cafe was a place where people could speak without words. As Alex drifted towards sleep, their last thought was simple. This is where I'm meant to be. Chapter 2. Eggs at Dawn. Alex woke before the sun had fully climbed over the rooftops, the sky still washed in the pale blue that existed only in the hour between night and morning. It was a color that always reminded them of clean paper, blank, waiting, unjudging, a color that promised nothing yet seemed open to anything. They blinked slowly, letting the quiet seep in. Unlike their old engineering days, there was no alarm snarling in their ear, no urgent emails, no pre-meeting jitters curling like cold wire in their stomach. There was only the soft hum of the refrigerator, the whisper of the wind outside the cracked window, and the faint scent of basil left over from yesterday's cooking. Alex stretched lazily beneath the covers. Opening the cafe meant early mornings, but somehow this didn't feel like a burden. It felt like waking for something gentle rather than something sharp. They dressed in comfortable clothes, a loose flannel, jeans, a scarf that still held the faint scent of flour and rosemary from yesterday's bread attempts, and stepped out into the street. The air was crisp and smelled faintly of dew, as if every blade of grass had been freshly washed. Puddles of golden street lamp light dotted the pavement, gradually dissolving into brightness as the sun approached the horizon. Alex wrapped their hands around a travel mug of warm water and lemon, sipping it as they walked the short distance to the Saturday farmers market. The market was still waking up too. A few vendors were setting up their stands, lifting tent frames like slow, deliberate choreography. Crates thumped softly onto tables. Someone hummed a folk tune under their breath. The scent of earth and vegetables drifted through the air with each movement. Alex loved this quiet hour, before the chatter, before the aromas of baked goods and roasted nuts, when everything felt full of potential. Their steps carried them toward the produce vendor near the back, a stall stacked with bright greens, earthy roots, and hand-painted signs featuring tiny, smiling carrots and radishes. Behind the table stood Samira. Her hair was tied in a messy bun high on her head, a pencil tucked behind one ear, her sleeves rolled up as she arranged bunches of herbs with near-reverent care. Samira always looked like she'd just stepped out of a childhood storybook. Someone who had conversations with plants, someone who might befriend forest spirits if given the chance. She looked up just as Alex approached. "Morning, chef." Alex flushed a little. "You don't have to call me that." "I do," she replied with a grin. "You actually cook for people. That earns the title." Alex pretended to examine a bundle of chives to hide the smile tugging at their lips. They liked Samira. She laughed easily, moved gently, and treated each vegetable as though it had a soul worth honoring. A kindred mindset, perhaps. "What's inspiring you today?" Samira asked, leaning on the counter. "I'm not sure yet," Alex admitted. "Yesterday was tomato bisque, something soothing. Today, I'm thinking breakfast flavors, maybe eggs." "Eggs are a good choice," she said thoughtfully. "Soft foods for soft days." She reached beneath the counter and pulled out a carton filled with eggs that ranged from pale blue to deep brown. "Fresh from my partner's hens. They'll make any dish taste like a warm memory." Alex accepted the carton like it was treasure. They weren't sure whether it was the promise of good food or the way Samira always infused her words with sincerity that made simple ingredients seem almost enchanted. "These look beautiful," Alex said. "They're alive," Samira corrected gently. "In their own way. Just like everything here." Alex nodded, running a thumb over the smooth shell of a pale blue egg. They imagined cracking it into a pan, watching the yolk slip into a glowing orb of gold, soft and rich. Maybe a tamagoyaki. Something delicate and layered, made with intention. "Anything else catching your eye?" Samira asked. Alex surveyed the stall. The herbs glimmered faintly with dew. Bunches of scallions stood upright like soldiers waiting for instructions. There were baskets of baby spinach, bundles of lemon thyme, and a container of wild mushrooms whose shapes twisted like tiny umbrellas left in the rain. But their eyes kept drifting back to the scallions. "I'll take those too," Alex said. "And some of the thyme." Samira packed the items into a small canvas bag, adding an extra handful of herb sprigs. "For luck," she said with a wink. Alex handed her cash, though Samira shook her head at the extra $1. "First week discount for my favorite café?" "I'm your only café," Alex said. "Exactly. It makes the math easier." Alex laughed, a soft, unexpected sound. They felt something warm expand in their chest, like the rising steam from a simmering pot. They thanked Samira again, then turned toward a home just as the sun broke fully over the horizon, washing the market in gentle gold. Back at the cafe, the familiar quiet greeted Alex like an old friend. They carried the ingredients to the kitchen and set them on the counter one by one. Eggs, scallions, thyme, a container of rice they'd prepped last night. The act of lining everything up felt ceremonial, like arranging tiny altars to the day's possibilities. Alex filled a bowl with cold water and let their hands rest briefly in it. The shock of it jolted them awake in the best way, grounding them. They cracked the knuckles of their fingers, rolled their shoulders, and began. The scallions were first, crisp, fresh, so aromatic they almost smelled like spring. Alex sliced them into thin rings, each cut whispering against the cutting board. The eggs, when cracked, revealed yolks so golden they looked like miniature suns. Alex whisked them with chopsticks, watching the mixture turn the color of warm, late-afternoon light. To the bowl, they added a splash of dashi, a bit of soy, the scallions, and a pinch of sugar. The combination smelled comforting, familiar, like the kitchens Alex had grown up in. Yesterday's soup had been about rediscovery. Today's dish felt like reassurance. When the pan heated, Alex poured a thin layer of the egg mixture in. It sizzled softly, the edges beginning to set. They tilted the pan, coaxing the liquid into every corner, then rolled the cooked layer into a soft log. Another layer poured, another roll. The process was patient, almost meditative. Each fold was like a breath, slow and steady. The tamagoyaki grew with each layer, a warm little bundle of effort and care. When it was done, Alex transferred it to a cutting board, let it cool ever so slightly, and then sliced it into thick, plump pieces that displayed beautiful layers when fanned out. They tasted one. And the world slowed, soft, savory, sweet, warm, a whisper of scallions, the comfort of childhood afternoons and lazy breakfasts. Alex felt their chests loosen as if a hidden knot inside them had been gently untied. A few steps away, the rice cooker clicked, signaling it was done. Alex fluffed the rice with a wooden spatula, smiling at the gentle puff of steam that rose like a greeting. The café was ready. Alex unlocked the door and flipped the sign to open, though they doubted anyone would arrive so early on a Sunday. Still, something about being prepared felt right. Minutes passed. The morning light shifted. A breeze drifted through the open window, carrying the scent of the tamagoyaki into the room. Alex rubbed their hands together to warm them. They hadn't realized how cold it still was, and sat on the stool behind the counter, sipping tea. They almost didn't hear the door open. A tall man in running gear stepped inside, cheeks flushed from exertion. He wiped sweat from his brow, breathing heavily, but smiling. "Oh, thank God," he said. "You're open. I've been smelling something amazing from the street for the last 10 minutes. Alex blinked. "Good morning. I didn't realize the scent would travel that far." "It's probably just me being starving after a long run," he said with a laugh. "I'm Elliot." He extended a hand, and Alex shook it. His palm was warm, calloused slightly. "Alex," they said, "I run the place." "Well, Alex, whatever you're making smells like a hug I didn't know I needed." Alex's heart loosened again. They gestured to the counter stool. "Have a seat. Today's dish is tamagoyaki with rice." "That sounds perfect," he said, sliding onto the stool with an exhausted but content sigh. "I always forget to make breakfast before running. My trainer yells at me for it." Alex plated the dish carefully, adding a small garnish of thyme leaves and a side of pickled daikon they'd made on a whim the night before. When they set the plate before him, Elliot let out a slow, appreciative, "Whoa." "It looks like something from an anime," he said happily, "like the kind of breakfast someone eats before going on a magical adventure." Alex laughed. "Well, you did run here. That counts as an adventure." He took the first bite and then the second, and then leaned over the counter with wide eyes. "This is insane. How does something so simple taste this good?" Alex felt heat rise to their cheeks. Fresh ingredients. And care. "That's obvious," he said, pointing his chopsticks at her plate. "These eggs taste like someone's happy childhood." Alex's breath caught unexpectedly. Something about the sincerity of his statement. It was almost too earnest, too real. They looked down at their hands, feeling the stirrings of something warm in their chest. Elliot noticed. "Sorry, did I say something weird?" "No," Alex said quickly. "No, not at all. I'm just glad it means something to you." He nodded, chewing thoughtfully. "Food always means something. I think that's why I like running in the mornings. Everything tastes better after you've pushed your body a little, like your senses wake up differently, you know?" Alex considered that. "Maybe that's why I like cooking in the mornings. My mind feels clearer, like there's more space for flavor." "That's beautifully said," Elliot replied. They both laughed awkwardly, one of those soft, unexpected laughs that comes from finding an unexpected kindred spirit. Elliot finished his meal slowly, savoring each bite. When he finally stood to leave, he placed money on the counter and stretched his arms above his head. "I'll be back," he promised. "This place feels good, like a place you could go when the world feels too sharp." Alex nodded. "I'd like that. Have a good run home." As he left, the bell above the door jingled. The cafe fell quiet again, but not in the lonely way of the first day. This silence felt lived in, touched by human warmth. Alex breathed it in, feeling the space become more theirs by the second. The next customer didn't arrive until nearly an hour later, a young couple who bickered playfully about how eggs should be cooked. Soft scramble is best. No, boiled with chili oil. You're wrong. No, you're wrong. Their banter filled the cafe with a warm lightness, and Alex found themselves smiling through most of the interaction. People were funny, unexpected, soft where they didn't realize they were soft. Food didn't just nourish, it revealed. By the time the sun climbed high enough that shadows shrank to small puddles beneath the stools, the tamagoyaki was gone. The rice cooker was nearly empty. Alex leaned on the counter, staring fondly at the last crumbs of breakfast scattered on the cutting board. It had been another quiet day, only a handful of customers, but each one had shared something, stories woven into the air like threads. Their presence had soaked into the cafe's wooden walls, into the tiny imperfections on the countertop, into the steam rising from the pan. Alex cleaned in slow, content motions, wiping down the counter, washing bowls, polishing the stovetop until it shone. They turned off the lights and locked the door. The sky outside had begun to shift into soft pastels, the colors of evening optimism. Alex carried the empty egg carton and herb stems to the compost bin behind the building. As they did, a breeze stirred the basil plants in the window box. The leaves fluttered gently toward them. Alex paused. For a moment, just a heartbeat, the basil's movement looked perfectly intentional, almost like a small nod of approval. Maybe it was just the wind. Or maybe certain places, once filled with warmth, began to breathe differently. Alex touched one of the leaves, feeling its soft texture against their fingertips. "See you tomorrow," they whispered. The leaf trembled delicately as if responding. Alex smiled all the way home. Chapter 3. Rainy Day. Udon. The rain arrived long before dawn, tapping softly against the cafe's front window in a restless, meandering rhythm. Alex Barnes woke to its whispering percussion, blinking up at the low ceiling of the small apartment above the Taste of Home cafe. The room smelled faintly of cedar and soy sauce from yesterday's simmered cabbage, but the rain sharpened everything, making the wooden boards underfoot feel cooler, the morning air gentler. Alex stretched slowly, savoring the pleasant soreness in their arms, a soreness earned from kneading dough the previous afternoon. Today would be another day for it. They descended the stairs into the still dark cafe, flicking on a single pendant light above the counter. The warm glow spilled across the narrow room, revealing the 4 wooden seats, each one mismatched, each one chosen because of the way it made Alex feel, like a house filled with old friends instead of furniture. Outside, the street glistened, rainwater pooling between uneven cobblestones and reflecting the gold from the cafe windows like patches of sunrise catching up early. Alex tied their apron, fingers lingering on the knot. Rainy days had always unsettled them slightly back in the engineering office. Flickering fluorescent lights, wet jacket sleeves clinging to their wrists, the scent of burnt coffee drifting from the break room. But here, in the cafe, the rain offered something else entirely. A hush, a spaciousness, a sense of being sheltered from the world rather than pressed into it. They filled a large earthenware bowl with flour, its surface pale and soft as morning fog. With a practiced motion, Alex made a well in the center and poured in cool water, letting it pool like a tiny lake. A pinch of salt followed. Then came the best part, bringing the dough together by hand. Udon demanded patience and strength. Not unlike healing, Alex thought. You couldn't rush either. The dough resisted at first, clinging to their fingers, then firming as they pressed their palms into it. Push, fold, turn, push, fold, turn. The rhythm was calming, the way kneading always was, but today it carried a different kind of quietness. The rain outside sharpened every small sound inside the kitchen. The sigh of the wooden counter as Alex leaned into it, the faint creak of the old iron teapot warming on the stove, even their breath moving in and out with steady focus. Chai. 15 minutes later, the dough had transformed into something smooth and alive, warm from their hands. Alex wrapped it in cloth and set it aside to rest before rolling. In the meantime, they turned to the broth, a miso-based one today, cloudy and rich, with layers of flavor built from kombu, dried shiitake, and a splash of mirin. The mushrooms, soaked overnight, released an earthy aroma that mingled with the sweet scent of miso as the pot heated. Slow braising them would coax out their tenderness, a softness that felt right for a rainy day. Alex ladled a small spoonful of the broth and tasted, a little more soy sauce, maybe a touch of ginger. They grated a sliver, watching it fall like pale yellow snowfall into the pot. Better. As the broth simmered, they glanced toward the window. The sky had lightened from inky blue to a muted slate gray. The street remained empty, though puddles shivered whenever a stray gust of wind hurried by. It would be a quiet morning. That suited Alex fine. They rolled out the dough next, the thick mass resisting the rolling pins stubbornly before finally yielding. The knife sliced through cleanly, creating ribbons of udon that curled slightly at the edges. Alex brushed flour from their hands and paused to inhale deeply. Handmade noodles had a scent, subtle but unmistakable, pure wheat, warm and honest. The cafe clock ticked toward 8. Alex had just finished arranging bowls and chopsticks on the counter when the door opened with a jingle that seemed almost too loud for the gentle mood of the morning. A young woman stood in the doorway, rain streaming from the tips of her hair onto her jacket. She clutched a violin case against her chest, as though shielding it from the world. Her eyes, dark and tired, lifted to meet Alex's with a flicker of apology. "Sorry," she murmured, pushing damp strands from her forehead. "I didn't realize you were already open." "I opened early for the rain," Alex said softly. "Come in. You look frozen." The woman stepped inside, closing the door behind her with careful hands. Alex could see her shiver as warm air enveloped her. She glanced at the 4 seats, then chose the one near the window, setting her violin case gently onto the floor beside her. When she removed her jacket, small droplets pattered onto the wooden seat, but she looked too weary to notice. "What's your name?" Alex asked, wiping the counter in front of her. "Talia," she said. Her voice was small. "I was walking. I'm not sure where to, honestly. The rain caught me." Alex nodded, not pressing. Some customers brought stories with them. Others brought silence. Either way, the meal welcomed both. "Today's dish is rainy day udon," Alex said, moving toward the kitchen. "Handmade noodles, miso broth, slow-braised mushrooms. Would you like a bowl?" Talia hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, please." The broth warmed the air as Alex poured it into the bowl, the noodles resting gently beneath the surface. They added the tender mushrooms, a scattering of scallions, and one last touch, thinly sliced yuzu peel for a hint of brightness. When Alex placed the steaming bowl before Talia, she inhaled once, long and full, as though drawing in a memory. "Thank you," she whispered. She lifted the noodles carefully with her chopsticks. The first bite made her shoulders lower, her eyes closed just slightly. When she opened them again, a sheen of emotion lingered there. "This tastes like—" She paused, searching. "Like someone telling you it's okay to stop trying to be strong." Alex's heartbeat faltered, just a little. "I hope it's comforting." "It is," Talia said, setting her chopsticks down briefly. "More than I expected. I haven't had anything like this in a long time. Haven't cooked, haven't eaten properly." She swallowed. "I used to play violin. Well, I still do, technically. But a few weeks ago, my girlfriend, my ex, she left. And with her went my music, I guess." The rain outside softened to a drizzle, as though listening. Alex leaned against the counter, hands resting lightly on the wood. "Losing something that mattered that much, it can hollow you out." Their voice was gentle, not probing. Talia nodded, staring into the broth. "I pick up the violin, but nothing comes out. Not anything worth hearing. It feels like I'm only imitating myself." She traced a finger along the rim of the bowl. "I don't know how people keep going when the thing that made them feel alive suddenly hurts too much to touch." Alex hesitated, then spoke quietly. "When I left my engineering job, I felt something similar. I thought not being able to keep up meant I'd failed. Cooking was the only place left where I could breathe. But even that felt wrong for a while." They tapped the counter lightly. "Sometimes you have to let yourself be quiet before you can make any sound again." Talia gazed at them, really gazed, as though grateful that someone understood without asking her to explain further. She took another bite of the udon, slower this time, her expression softening with each mouthful. "It's strange," she said after a while. "I came in here just to escape the rain. Now it feels like I walked into warmth." She smiled faintly. "I didn't realize I needed warmth." Alex smiled back. "Most people don't, not until they taste it." A silence settled then, not heavy, but peaceful. The kind of silence that feels shared rather than empty. Talia finished her bowl slowly, savoring every bite. When she lifted the last strand of noodle, her hands seemed steadier. She set her chopsticks down gently. "May I come back sometime?" The question was fragile, like the trembling note of a violin just before it steadies into pitch. "Of course," Alex said. "Any time." Talia picked up her violin case, pausing for a moment as though listening to something faint, a whisper, a memory, or maybe the very first stirrings of a song returning. The rain had eased to a light patter as she stepped outside, her figure framed by the soft gray world beyond the cafe door. When she vanished around the corner, Alex stood in the quiet cafe, surrounded by the lingering aroma of miso and mushrooms. The morning light finally broke through the clouds, landing across the counter in golden slants. The broth simmered gently in the pot, and the noodles still lay in neat, flour-dusted bundles, waiting for the next customer who might need warmth too. Alex touched the edge of the counter, feeling the wood beneath their fingertips. Somehow, Talia's visit had shifted something inside them, a reminder that food could be more than sustenance. It could be shelter. It could be the first step toward healing. They breathed in the scent of broth again, feeling it fill the empty spaces in their chest. Another day at the Taste of Home Cafe had begun. Chapter 4. A Farmer's Gift. Morning sunlight crept slowly over the storefronts along Juniper Street, washing the cobblestones in a mellow gay gold that promised the beginning of true autumn. The Taste of Home Cafe glowed under its touch, the windows slightly fogged from the steam rising inside the kitchen, where Alex Barnes had already been working for nearly an hour. Today's dish was proving far more stubborn than they anticipated. There was a bowl of mashed pumpkins staring accusingly from the counter, 2 failed attempts at pumpkin sage gnocchi already discarded in a silver mixing bowl. The kitchen smelled of roasted squash and disappointment. Alex scraped the latest attempt off their hands with a sigh. The texture still wasn't right. Too dense, too gummy, a betrayal of the pillowy ideal they pictured in their mind. Gnocchi was simple in theory, but merciless in practice. The pumpkin had such personality that it refused to stay within the boundaries of what the dough needed. Too wet, too sweet, too forward with its opinions. But Alex sympathized with that. Sometimes you didn't want to behave either. They leaned back against the counter, letting the golden morning light warm their cheeks. Outside, a few early birds wandered through the farmers' market stalls that dotted the neighboring square every Saturday. Alex could hear the faint hum of conversation, the gentle clatter of crates being set down, the laughter of vendors greeting one another, the routine movement of a town waking up. The cafe door swung open, letting in a crisp breeze rich with the scent of apples and fresh soil. Mara stepped inside, boots leaving tiny flecks of dirt across the threshold. She was a familiar sight, her red hair tucked under a knit cap, sleeves rolled up, cheeks flushed from early morning harvesting. She carried a wooden crate in her arms, and it was overflowing with pumpkins of every shape and shade, from deep sunset orange to pale, ghostly cream. "Morning, Alex," she said, lifting the crate as though it weighed nothing. "Thought I'd stop by before the market rush." "You brought a lot of pumpkins," Alex said, blinking at the abundance. Mara grinned. "Harvest's been generous this year. I figured you'd make better use of them than letting them sit in my stall, hoping someone appreciates their curbs." Alex wiped their hands on their apron, walking around the counter. "You didn't have to bring so many." "I know," she said, setting the crate down with a soft thud. "But I wanted to. That soup you made last week, what was it? The spinach and spring onion one? You treated my greens like they were special. Not everyone does." Her eyes softened. It meant something. Alex felt warmth creep into their chest, not the kind born from the stove, but something quieter, grounding. "Thank you," they said sincerely. "Really." Mara shrugged as though embarrassed by gratitude. She picked up one of the rounder pumpkins and weighed it in her hand. These ones are sweet, not too fibrous. Good for whatever magic you're making in here. She sniffed the air. Smells like you're already in the thick of it. Alex groaned lightly. I'm on my third attempt at Gnocchi and losing the battle. Gnocchi? Mara raised an eyebrow. That's ambitious. Foolish might be the better word. Mara laughed, warm and contagious. Want another pair of hands? I need bread every morning. Dough is basically my second language. Alex hesitated, then nodded gratefully. If you're not too busy. I've got time before the college kids decide they need decorative gourds for their dorms. Alex washed their hands, and together they returned to the counter. Mara pushed up her sleeves, revealing strong forearms dusted with freckles. She picked up the bowl of pumpkin mash and immediately frowned. This is wetter than a puddle in April. I roasted it until soft, Alex said defensively. And then didn't let it rest long enough, Mara countered, her tone kind but firm. Pumpkin holds water like a guilty secret. She grabbed a clean kitchen cloth, scooped some pumpkin into the center, and started squeezing. Golden liquid streamed out, dripping into the sink. There, now it'll behave. Alex stared in awe. You're a pumpkin whisperer. Comes with the career. Mara winked. When they mixed the drier pumpkin with flour, sage, and a pinch of nutmeg, the dough finally began to respond. It came together softly, forming a tender, almost velvety mass beneath their fingertips. Alex marveled at the difference, feeling hope rise in them like dough left in a warm corner. They rolled the mixture into thin ropes and cut each into small, delicate pillows. Mara took a fork and pressed indentations onto each piece, the ridges catching the sunlight like tiny golden hills. You make it look easy, Alex said. I mess up all the time, she replied, brushing flour from her palms. Every season teaches you something. Mostly that failure is just part of the routine. Alex nodded, thinking of Talia from the rainy day before, how grief left quiet fingerprints on every movement. Healing wasn't linear. Neither was cooking. Maybe they were the same thing. The water in the pot reached a lazy boil. Alex dropped the first batch of gnocchi in. They sank, paused, then floated to the surface like sleepy creatures gently waking. Alex lifted them out, setting them into a pan of browned butter. Crispy sage leaves crackling as the heat embraced them. The aroma filled the tiny café, nutty, warm, autumn distilled into scent. Oh, Mara murmured, leaning in. If that tastes half as good as it smells. Alex handed her a small testing plate. They each took a single gnocchi, blowing on it before biting in. The texture was tender with a slight chew. The flavor, a dance of sweet pumpkin, earthy sage, and the comforting embrace of butter. Mara closed her eyes with the slow satisfaction of someone tasting honest work. You did it, she said. You actually did it. You helped, Alex corrected. But Mara waved the acknowledgement away. You would have figured it out. You've got good instincts. Just need a little confidence in them. By the time the cafe officially opened, the gnocchi was simmering in wide cast-iron pans. Customers drifted in, locals draped in scarves, tourists drawn by the scent wafting through the street, and a few familiar faces. Old Mr. Halston sat by the window, recounting stories from past harvest festivals, to a young couple visiting from out of town. A pair of siblings argued, good-naturedly, over which pumpkin looked the most like a squashed cat. Every now and then, someone would pause mid-bite to make a sound of delight, soft and involuntary. As Alex moved between stove and counter, serving bowls adorned with curls of crispy sage, they felt something growing around them. Not just customers, not just a business doing well, something more alive, something warm. A community. The cafe hummed with it, conversations intertwining, laughter bubbling up like water in the pot, scents lingering in the air like tiny blessings. Mara lingered at the counter between markets, sipping the spiced apple tea Alex brewed for her. You know, she said, watching Alex work, places like this don't just appear. They're built, slowly, with intention. Sometimes it still feels like the cafe is fragile, Alex admitted, like the smallest thing could make it all fall apart. Maybe it is fragile, Mara said thoughtfully. Most living things are, but fragile doesn't mean weak. She nudged the crate of pumpkins with her boot. This is my thank you for treating my produce like it matters. It does to me, and so does this place. Alex felt tears rise unexpectedly, a soft burn behind their eyes. They blinked them back with a small laugh. Well, I hope you're ready to keep receiving gnocchi. I think I've made enough to feed half the town. Good, Mara said with a grin. They'll need it, and so will you. As the afternoon sun dipped lower, turning the cafe's windows amber, Alex stepped back for a moment to take in the scene. Warm light, warm food, warm voices. The pumpkins gleamed in the crate like captured sunlight, and for the first time in a long while, Alex felt anchored, not by duty or expectation, but by belonging. The taste of home cafe was becoming something real. Not just a place, a home. Chapter 5. Bread Rising. The morning began with the scent of rosemary. Alex Barnes clipped the sprigs directly from the small plant that sat in a sunlit corner of the cafe's kitchen. The herb had been a gift from one of the early customers, a soft-spoken woman who said every good kitchen needed a living green thing. Alex had kept it alive, miraculously, through careful watering and the occasional whispered apology. Today, it felt like the right ingredient, something sturdy, something that knew how to grow slowly, invisibly, and still remain fragrant. The taste of home. Cafe was quiet this early, even more so than usual. Outside, the town still stretched itself awake, with only the faint sounds of delivery trucks rumbling in the distance. The first pale rays of sun filtered through the windows, turning the flour floating in the air to tiny flecks of drifting gold. Alex inhaled deeply, hands resting on a clean wooden board. It had been years since they'd baked bread. Real bread, not just quick loaves or muffins. Back when they were an engineer, bread making had been a weekend escape, a way to feel something change at a pace they could understand. But when the office hours became longer, and the pressure tighter, baking slipped through the cracks. Living became about checking boxes on spreadsheets, not coaxing dough to life. Maybe that was why Alex felt a strange blend of nerves and anticipation today. Focaccia was simple in theory. Flour, water, salt, yeast, oil, herbs. But simple didn't mean easy or forgiving. They sifted the flour into a wide bowl, the soft sound reminding them of snowfall. They added salt, then made a well in the center. The warm water flowed in, followed by yeast that scattered like tiny seeds of possibility. Alex stirred gently, watching the mixture transform, bit by bit, into something sticky and unruly. As they began to knead, the dough clung to their fingers, resisting in stubborn waves. Every push seemed to echo something inside Alex. Tension, doubt, the memory of fluorescent lights buzzing, of late-night emails marked urgent, of a body that had whispered its exhaustion long before they learned how to listen. Kneading became a physical manifestation of the slow unraveling of those old knots. They pushed the dough forward and folded it back, their breath falling into rhythm with the motion. Bit by bit, the dough softened under their palms, its roughness giving way to elasticity. It warmed with the heat of their hands. It stopped fighting. It changed. Good, Alex murmured, just like that. Their voice was quiet, but in the empty cafe it felt almost uncomfortably loud, as though they'd broken some kind of morning spell. They set the dough in an oiled bowl, covering it with a soft cloth. The yeasty scent drifted upward like a promise. Bread required patience. It grew in silence, unseen, like healing, like courage, like learning to step away from a life that didn't fit. Alex moved around the kitchen, preparing olives for the tapenade. They pitted them by hand, collecting the glossy black spheres in a bowl. Their knife moved steadily, chop, scrape, fold, turning olives into a coarse paste with capers, lemon zest, and a drizzle of golden oil. The aroma was salty, bright, and grounding, like a reminder to keep going even when progress hid beneath the surface. The cafe door jingled just as Alex tasted a small spoonful of the tapenade. They turned, expecting an early customer, but instead found Mr. Halston standing in the doorway, balancing a somewhat precarious stack of old, weather-worn books in his arms. "Good morning," Alex called, wiping their hands. "Morning, my dear," he answered, though he looked slightly winded. "I come bearing treasures." He carefully lowered the stack onto the counter, the books thudding softly. Their covers were faded, corners bent, pages yellowed. Some had handwritten notes peeking out like secrets tucked between the recipes. "What's all this?" Alex asked, eyes brightening with curiosity. "Cookbooks," Mr. Halston said, patting the top one affectionately. "Collected them over the years. Started when I was about your age. I thought—" His smile wavered gently. "Well, I thought I'd be a chef one day." Alex blinked. "You did?" "Oh yes," he replied, settling into his usual seat by the window. The chair creaked familiarly under his weight. Had grand dreams of kitchens and spices and menus with my name on them. But life had plans of its own. My father needed help with the shop. Then came the bills, then marriage, then children. Cooking stayed, but only as something for the home, not the world. Alex looked at the books again, tracing their spines with the tips of their fingers. "Why bring them here?" "Because you'll actually use them," he said simply. "And because I see something in you that I used to feel in myself, before I convinced myself it was impractical." There was no bitterness in his voice, only a quiet acceptance, the kind that came from years of understanding the difference between dreams that faded and those that took new form. Alex swallowed. "Thank you. This means a lot." "It's my pleasure," he said. "Besides, the missus has been asking me to clear out the storage room for decades." Alex laughed, the sound comforting. Mr. Halston smiled back, tapping his cane lightly on the floor. "How's the bread coming along?" he asked. "It's rising," Alex said, glancing toward the covered bowl. "Ah," he nodded knowingly. "The waiting is the hardest part. You can't see what's happening, but you have to trust it anyway." Alex felt the words settle somewhere deep inside them. They thought of their own journey, leaving the engineering world behind, taking a risk on a café with only 4 seats, believing in something that felt impossibly fragile, trusting the unseen parts of growth. They checked the dough a few minutes later and found it swelling beautifully, lifting the cloth like a slow exhale. Alex's lips curled in a small, proud smile. They transferred it onto the baking sheet, dimpling the surface with their fingertips. The dough gave way under the gentle pressure, springing back slightly. They drizzled olive oil across it, letting it pool in the indentations, then sprinkled rosemary leaves across the top. Sea salt followed, crystals scattering like small glittering stones. The oven hummed with heat as the focaccia slid inside. Within minutes, the air filled with a fragrance so comforting it felt almost like a song. Rosemary, warm dough, olive oil turning golden. Mr. Halston closed his eyes and inhaled deeply. "That," he said, "is the scent of comfort." "It's the scent of success, I hope," Alex said, smiling nervously. "Success takes many forms," he replied. "What matters is that you're making something with care." The focaccia emerged from the oven glowing, its crust a beautiful sunlit brown, edges crisp, the center airy and soft. Alex cut a small square and plated it with a spoonful of tapenade, hands trembling with excitement. They offered it to Mr. Halston first. He took a bite and chewed slowly, savoring every flavor. Salt, herb, the softness of the bread, the brightness of the olives. "Oh," he whispered. "Oh good or oh bad?" Alex asked, breath held captive. "Oh," he repeated with a grin, as in, "Oh my dear, you've done something wonderful." Relief and pride washed over Alex like warm light. They cut more slices and set them on the counter, just as the first customers of the day trickled in. Soon the cafe filled with laughter and conversation, the satisfying crunch of focaccia crust, the hum of people finding small joys in a simple meal. The books sat by the register, waiting patiently to be opened, their pages ready to offer forgotten wisdom. The dough bowl sat empty, save for a few crumbs of flour dusting the bottom, and Alex, moving between customers and counter, felt something rising in them too, a quiet confidence, the kind that didn't shout or demand recognition, but grew steadily, like dough left in a warm corner of the kitchen. Unseen, slow, certain. Bread taught patience, so did life. And in the cozy glow of the café, Alex felt, perhaps for the first time in years, that they were rising too. Chapter 6. Spices from Far Away. The morning unfurled slowly, like steam drifting from a simmering pot. Alex grated ginger into a small mountain, its fragrance bright and sharp enough to wake the room on its own. Carrots chopped into cheerful crescents clattered softly against the cutting board. Outside, the clouds were pale and unmoving, as if the world had paused just long enough for Alex to wonder what might come next. They stirred the pot, watching the carrots surrender their firmness to the slow, coaxing warmth of the curry. Coconut milk streamed in like a ribbon of cream-colored light, turning everything velvety. The cafe filled with a scent that felt both new and strangely nostalgic, something like optimism. The door chimed, and a gust of wind brought in the smell of distant rain, and with it, a woman carrying a camera bag almost as large as her smile. "You must be Alex," she said, brushing a loose curl from her face. "I've heard rumors about your food. Good ones." "Nadine," Alex guessed. "Guilty," she laughed, setting her bag down. "Traveling food photographer, eater of questionable street snacks, lover of anything with ginger." Alex blinked at the mention of ginger and stirred the pot a bit more self-consciously. "Well, this curry should make you happy." Nadine sniffed the air, eyes widening. "Is that toasted cumin? And fresh ginger? Oh, this is going to be good." She took a seat at the counter, camera resting beside her like a companion. As Alex ladled curry over coconut rice, Nadine began talking, not in the loud, bragging way some travelers did, but in a soft, rolling cadence that made even chaos sound beautiful. She told stories of spice markets where turmeric stained the air, and vendors scooped saffron threads from glass jars like offering gold. She described night stalls in Bangkok, where noodles hissed on iron griddles, and breakfast carts in Marrakesh, where the smell of orange blossom water clung to your clothes. Alex listened, absorbed, feeling something inside them stretch awake. Nadine spoke of flavors the way some people spoke of music, vibrant, unrestrained, full of motion. "Food is a journey," she said between bites. "Even when you're staying in one place, it keeps changing you." Alex wasn't sure if she meant the dish or the life lived around it. Maybe both. Nadine's face softened as she tasted the curry again, this time slower, thoughtful. This tastes like possibility," she said. "Like someone who's ready for something they haven't named yet." Alex felt heat rise to their cheeks, and not just from the ginger. "I'm not sure what I'm ready for," they admitted quietly. "I just know cooking makes me feel more alive than anything else has in a long time." "Then follow that," Nadine murmured. "See where it takes you. That's what I do. Every place, every plate, it's a map." The idea settled into Alex's mind like a seed landing in soft soil. They watched as Nadine snapped a photo of the half-finished bowl, the curl of steam rising like a question mark. "Maybe you'll travel again," she said lightly. "Or maybe the world will come to you in little ways. Both are valid journeys." Alex smiled, surprised by how deeply they wanted to believe of her. As she left, the bell chimed once more, a small lingering echo. Alex returned to the pot, inhaling the warm swirl of ginger, carrot, and curry. Suddenly the cafe felt larger, not in size, but in potential, as if doors they hadn't even built yet were waiting to open. Flavors, Alex thought, really were metaphors, and this one tasted like the beginning of something. Something bright, something wide, something warmly, courageously new. Chapter 7. The Misfit Gathering. Late afternoon sunlight stretched across the cafe floor, thin and warm, like a blanket left out just for comfort. Alex had just begun prepping dumpling fillings, ginger pork, mushroom scallion, and a sweet potato one that tasted like autumn trying to make friends, when the door chimed once. Then again, then again. Within minutes, the cafe, usually so calm it felt like a deep breath, was suddenly full. Mara the pumpkin farmer squeezed inside with the smell of fields still clinging to her shirt. Mr. Halston followed, balancing a stack of cookbooks he insisted Alex should borrow indefinitely. Talia drifted in too, violin case on her back. damp hair curling from the shower she'd evidently rushed out of, and a couple of other regulars appeared out of nowhere, like they'd all heard a silent summons. "There aren't enough seats," Alex said, half apologetic. Mara waved a hand. "Then we'll just sit together. Community seating, right?" Mr. Halston chuckled. "Like a very cozy banquet." Before Alex could protest, customers dragged chairs around the big table in the center of the room, the one usually meant for groups that never actually came. Today, it was perfect. "Alex," Talia called gently, slipping off her jacket, "can we help? It looks like dumpling day." Alex hesitated for the briefest moment, then nodded. "Sure, if you want." They set out small bowls of water, stacks of wrappers, and spoons for filling. People gathered instinctively, like birds circling to land in the same soft place. The kitchen felt warmer with everybody that entered it, their chatter blending with the hum of the fridge and the rhythmic thump of Alex chopping more scallions. "Fold like this," Alex demonstrated, pinching the edge of a wrapper as neatly as they could. Mara tried first. Her dumpling looked like it had been sat on by a cow. She held it up proudly. "It has character." "It has structural issues," Mr. Halston observed, squinting over his glasses, "but endearing ones." Laughter spread like rising dough, soft, spontaneous, impossible to stop. Even Alex laughed, a sound that they didn't always recognize as their own. Something loosened inside them, like a knot finally deciding to dissolve. Talia worked quietly, her fingers surprisingly precise. "My grandmother used to make dumplings with me," she said, tucking a fold into place. "She said food is how people hold each other without touching." Alex paused. "She sounds wise." She was. Talia smiled, and though the hurt in her eyes hadn't vanished, it felt gentler now, softened like dough left to rest. Bowls filled quickly with lumpy, misshapen, perfect little dumplings. Alex boiled them in batches, steam rising in thick clouds that fogged the windows and warmed everyone's cheeks. The room glowed in golden humidity. And then, quietly, something strange happened. As Alex lifted the lid from the pot, steam spiraled upward, not in a straight plume, but curling, looping, forming shapes that flickered for only a second. A rabbit, a small fox, a bird with wings wide open. Alex blinked. The images vanished as quickly as they'd appeared, dissolving into ordinary vapor. Mara rubbed her eyes. "Did anyone else see?" Talia nodded slowly. "A fox." Briefly. Mr. Halston cleared his throat as if deciding whether to believe his own senses. Well, dumplings do tend to bring out whimsy. The table erupted into conversation, speculation, jokes, a few nervous laughs, but beneath it all, a shared feeling thrummed. Not fear, not confusion, something softer, as if, for one delicate moment, the café had revealed a secret it didn't usually share. Eirag. Alex served the dumplings with soy, vinegar, and chili oil. People passed bowls around the table, bumping elbows, leaning in to tell small stories. Some about childhood, some about heartbreak, some about nothing important at all. The café vibrated with warmth, not just from the steamed air, but from the way everyone relaxed into each other. Misfits, dreamers, lonely hearts, all gathered like it was the most natural thing in the world. Alex stood for a moment, watching them. A feeling rose in their chest, quiet, tender, unsure how to name itself, but definite. Real. This wasn't just a cafe, not anymore. It was becoming a place people returned to, a place people belonged, a small refuge where magic, real or imagined, might drift through the air like steam and make itself known. And Alex, though they didn't say it out loud, felt something rising inside them too, slowly, softly. Like a dumpling lifted from warm water, fragile, warm, and filled with something good. Chapter 8. Tea for Memories. Morning drifted into the café like a soft exhale, the kind that carries no urgency, no deadlines, just a gentle invitation to begin. Alex unlocked the door before the sun was fully awake, the sky still pale with that early blue that feels like a held note in a quiet song. the air outside was crisp enough to nip at their fingers, making the thought of hot tea especially comforting. Inside, the café smelled faintly of last night's rosemary and lingering flower, and beneath that, the subtle promise of citrus from the peels Alex had dried the evening before. Today wasn't about a heavy dish or a meal that commanded attention. Today was about stillness, warmth, and the kind of nourishment that didn't require chewing, just breathing. They set out jars of hojicha first, the roasted tea leaves a deep earthy brown, crinkled like tiny gathered leaves in autumn. Then came the adornments, curls of yuzu peel, slices of dried orange, honey from a local beekeeper whose jars always came with hand-drawn bees on the labels. Next, Alex laid out thick slices of milk bread for the sweet bean toast, soft enough that each loaf practically sighed when touched. The kettle's whistle sounded more melodic than usual, maybe because the café was otherwise silent. Alex poured water over the tea leaves, watching them unfurl like tiny memories waking up. The door chimed. A young person with soft black hair and a gentle posture stepped inside, carrying a sense of careful slowness around them, like someone who didn't want to disturb the world more than necessary. They looked around the empty café and smiled as if relieved to find it calm. "Good morning," Alex said. "Welcome in." "Morning," they replied, shrugging off their coat. "I hope I'm not too early." "Not at all. Early is peaceful." The customer nodded like they understood that intimately and took a seat at the smaller table by the window. They placed a small object on the table, a folded handkerchief with embroidered flowers. They didn't touch it again, but the way their eyes flicked to it suggested it mattered. "What can I get for you?" Alex asked. "Tea, something warm, something gentle." The customer paused. "My name's Kai, by the way." "Alex," they said. "I think I have just the thing." They brought over the citrus honey hojicha, steam curling upward like small beckoning fingers. The aroma of roasted tea leaves mingled with bright citrus, creating a scent that felt like a memory trying to surface. Kai inhaled deeply. Their shoulders loosened. "This reminds me of her," they murmured. Alex paused in the middle of straightening a napkin. "Her?" "My grandmother." Kai cupped their hands around the mug. "She used to brew tea every morning, not for the caffeine. She said tea was how you tuned your heart before the day started." "That's beautiful," Alex said softly. "She taught me all kinds of blends, citrus in winter to keep the cold away, mint in summer when the heat made everything heavy, hojicha on days when she felt nostalgic." They took a small sip. Their eyes softened. "It tastes like when she would hum while pouring. I didn't realize how much I missed that." Alex sat across from them for a moment, something they didn't always do, but today felt like a day for being present. "Sounds like she meant a lot to you." "She raised me for a while," Kai said, "and she was the first person who ever made me feel understood." They brushed a thumb over the edge of the cup. "She passed last year. I thought I was doing okay, but this morning I woke up missing her more than usual." Alex nodded. Grief didn't move in straight lines. It didn't respect calendars or healing timelines. It ebbed and surged like the tide, sometimes gentle, sometimes overwhelming. "My grandmother taught me to cook," Alex found themselves saying. "I used to sit on the counter, legs swinging, watching her chop vegetables with this tiny paring knife she swore was older than she was. Every time I felt like the world was too loud, she'd hand me something to stir. 'Stirring helps you think,' she'd say." Kai smiled. "Did it?" "Still does," Alex admitted. "Even now, when I'm anxious, I stir things I don't need to stir." They both laughed quietly, the sound warm and soft, like the steam still rising from the tea. Alex returned to the counter to prepare the sweet bean toast. They spread the velvety red bean paste generously, then added a thin ribbon of honey and a quick sprinkling of toasted sesame. When they delivered it to Kai, the sunlight, with impeccable timing, slipped through the window and made the honey glint. Kai studied the toast with a tenderness usually reserved for photo albums. "She used to make this too, a little different but similar." They took a bite. Their eyes shimmered. "I haven't tasted this in years." Alex didn't pry. Memories could be fragile things, easily broken if handled too roughly. But after a few minutes, Kai spoke again, voice quiet. I'm afraid I'm forgetting her. Not the big things, her kindness, her laugh, but the little things. The way her hands looked when she poured tea, the exact smell of her kitchen, her humming. They swallowed. I didn't think I'd ever forget those. Alex sat down again, leaning slightly forward. I think remembering isn't about keeping everything perfect. It's about revisiting when you can, about tasting something that brings her back, even if just for a moment. Kai looked up. Revisiting? Yeah, Alex said. Like brewing a tea she loved, or making a dish she taught you, or telling someone about her, each time you call her back a little. Kai's shoulders shook, not with sobs, but with some release of breath they'd been holding for too long. That's why I opened this place, Alex confessed. Cooking is my way of revisiting, of staying connected to the parts of my life that mattered before I lost myself. Kai wiped at their eyes with the handkerchief. The embroidered flowers caught the light. My grandmother embroidered this, they said. She made dozens. I didn't understand why, but she said someday I'd be glad to have them. They pressed it gently to their chest. She was right. They finished their tea slowly, savoring every sip. When they finally stood to leave, they bowed their head in gratitude. Thank you, Kai said, for the tea and for listening. Come back anytime, Alex replied, especially when you want to revisit. The door chimed as Kai left, and the cafe felt fuller somehow, even though it was empty again. The air held the faint perfume of citrus and roasted tea, and beneath it a quieter note, something like remembrance or maybe acceptance. Alex refilled the kettle. They weren't sure if it was the lingering warmth from the tea or the memories it stirred, but their chests felt lighter in a way that made breathing easier. And for a moment, just a moment, they imagined their grandmother standing behind them, humming as she brewed her own cup. Chapter 9. Firelight Feast. Evening wrapped the cafe in a soft blue hush, the kind that settles over a small town when the last bit of daylight finally slips away. Alex stood in the doorway for a long moment, letting the cool air touch their face before stepping back inside. Tonight wasn't like any other night. Tonight, the cafe would glow. They moved through the small space carefully, almost reverently, lighting short beeswax candles on every table, then setting glass jars with tea lights along the window ledge. In the dimness, each flame flickered like a tiny heartbeat. The light warmed the walls into honey-colored radiance, turning the cafe into something out of a memory. Soft, timeless, full of quiet promise. Alex checked the pot simmering on the stove. Charred corn kernels floated like little gold jewels in the creamy broth. A swirl of smoked paprika drifted through the steam in slow spirals, glowing red like embers. The scent filled the cafe with something rich and grounded, hearty enough to make even a passing stranger pause outside the door. The chowder had taken hours, grilling the corn until it popped and blackened at the edges, blending a portion with potatoes to thicken it just right, adjusting paprika until it tasted like campfire and comfort and late summer colliding with early autumn. Alex had never intended to host evening pop-ups, not back when they first imagined the cafe as a gentle retreat from life, never something bold or public. But something in them had shifted over the past weeks. Confidence, maybe, or courage, or the simple desire to let people in. Soft instrumental jazz played through the speakers, and Alex caught their own reflection in the window. Tired but bright-eyed, nervous but excited. A version of themselves they hadn't seen in years. Right at 7, the door chimed. The first guests were Mara and her partner, Ray, who greeted Alex with enveloping smiles. We wouldn't miss your first dinner night, Mara said, removing her wool hattis and fluffing snow-dark curls. It looks magical in here. Soon after came Mr. Halston, wearing a navy sweater he had definitely chosen for this occasion, carrying yet another old cookbook he insisted he'd found while meaning to find something else entirely. Talia arrived quietly, violin case slung across her back, cheeks rosy from the cold. She took in the candlelit tables with a small, peaceful sigh. The cafe filled in a gentle wave, every person lowering their voice instinctively, as though entering a sacred space. Alex felt a tremor of nerves hit, sharp, fluttering, undeniable. These people had come for them, for their food, for something they had created with their own hands. It was thrilling, terrifying, alive. Then, through the candle haze came a familiar face, camera slung around her neck, scarf tied loosely over tousled hair, smile bright even in the dimness. "Nadine, you weren't kidding," she said, eyes sweeping the room. "This place looks like a story waiting to be told." Alex felt their heart knock a little harder in their chest. "I'm glad you could make it." "I wouldn't miss this," she said warmly. "Besides, I've been wanting to see you in action." Her words left a pleasant echo in Alex's mind as they returned to the stove, ladling hot chowder into bowls. They garnished each one with a small heap of charred corn, a pinch of smoked paprika, and a drizzle of scallion oil that glimmered in the firelight. As Alex carried the first tray out, Nadine lifted her camera. The soft click of the shutter blended with the candle flicker. It didn't feel intrusive. It felt like being seen, not scrutinized. The bowls found their places, and murmurs of appreciation rose around the cafe like warm steam. "This is incredible," Ray said, spoon halfway to their mouth. "Tastes like a campfire on a cold night," said Talia, eyes drifting closed. Mr. Halston dabbed his lips with a napkin, visibly moved. "My wife used to make chowder," he said softly. "Different, of course. But this reminds me of her hospitality." Alex swallowed around a tightness in their throat. Cooking in front of people, watching them taste, react, remember, was more vulnerable than they'd expected. But with each expression of joy, surprise, comfort, something inside Alex expanded. The old engineering self, the one who spent nights debugging circuits in fluorescent-lit rooms, hunched over deadlines with no soul left to give, felt distant, like a story from someone else's life, a ghost shedding its edges. Nadine approached the counter as Alex prepared the next batch, her camera hanging at her hip now. "You look happy," she said. Alex didn't deny it. "I feel like I'm doing what I'm meant to do." "That's rare," she murmured. "Most people go their whole lives without that feeling." "Maybe," Alex said, ladling more chowder. "But I think I forgot it for a long time." Nadine leaned against the counter, candlelight catching in her eyes. "Then it's good to see you remembering." Her words felt like a hand resting gently on Alex's back, steadying, encouraging. As the night went on, laughter filled the cafe, weaving through the room like a warm thread. Shadows danced across tables. The chowder pot emptied faster than Alex expected, and all the while, the firelight, the candles, the soft glow from the stove held everything together like a fragile, luminous heart. Near closing, Nadine snapped one last photo. Alex standing at the counter, apron dusted with paprika, sleeves rolled up, steam rising behind them like a gentle halo. "You should see this," she said, showing the camera screen. Alex stared. In the photo, they looked calm, proud, present in a way they hadn't recognized before. "Is that really me?" they whispered. "It's who you're becoming," Nadine said, "or maybe who you always were." Alex didn't know what to say. The warmth in their chest was nearly overwhelming. "Aw." The final guests left with hugs and promises to return. Alex walked them out, breath clouding in the cool air. When the door closed for the night, the cafe was quiet again, candles burning low, dishes stacked neatly, the scent of chowder and smoked paprika lingering like an afterglow. Alex sat for a moment at the big table, letting the warmth settle deep. They didn't feel like an engineer who'd escaped. They felt like a chef who had finally come home to themselves. And for the first time in years, the thought didn't frighten them. It filled them with light. Chapter 10. When the stove breaks. The morning began with the old promise. Sunlight pooled across the cafe floor in golden squares, warm enough to make Alex believe the day had chosen kindness. They stretched, rolled their shoulders, and hummed a tune they didn't recognize, something bright and fluttering that had settled into them sometime after the firelight feast. The plan was simple: a vibrant sesame noodle plate with cool, springy noodles, crisp pickled vegetables in jewel tones, and a fruit tart cared for so gently it practically glowed. Easy, cheerful food, perfect for a slow, sunny day. Alex tied on their apron, pulled out the fresh vegetables Mara had dropped off the night before, and turned the stove knob to start boiling water. Click, click, click. Nothing. They frowned, twisted the knob again. Click, click, click. Still nothing. Not even the faintest hint of a flame. Huh. Alex crouched, inspected the burner, wiggled the control like that might wake it up. But the stove remained stubbornly, infuriatingly lifeless. Come on, they muttered, as though persuasion might coax fire from metal. Click. Silence. Alex pressed both palms to the counter and inhaled slowly. This had not been on the schedule. This was the opposite of the schedule. They needed heat. They needed boiling water. They needed everything except a dead stove. They flicked through troubleshooting steps with the muscle memory of someone who used to fix machines for a living, checking the line, testing the ignition, looking for blockages. Engineering instincts kicked in automatically. After 20 tense minutes, Alex sat back on their heels with a resigned groan. You've got to be kidding. The stove wasn't injured. It was fully, entirely, uncooperative. Perfect timing, really? Because of course the universe would wait until Alex was finally hitting their stride before throwing in a dramatic plot twist. The door chimed. Alex shot upright, brushed flour from their knees even though there was none, and attempted a neutral expression. Mara walked in holding a basket of radishes shaped like small pink lanterns. Morning, chef, Alex sighed. The stove is broken. Oh, she said sympathetically. Have you tried turning it off and on again? Alex blinked. You're saying that to a former engineer? Mara grinned. Then you know it's the only real fix. It didn't work, Alex said. The basket hit the counter. Well, then we improvise. Before Alex could question that, the door chimed again. And again. Soon Talia wandered in with her violin case, Mr. Halston with another cookbook. This one has a whole chapter about the history of egg tarts. June the comic artist clutching a sketchbook, and a sweet older couple named Clara and Dom, who had discovered the café only last week and had promptly decided they never wanted to eat anywhere else ever again. They all settled into their usual scatter of seats, the way regulars in a found family story do, each humming with familiarity. Alex cleared their throat. Everyone, the stove is broken today. Completely. Catastrophically. Emotionally. All of the above. June raised a hand. Is that bad? Only if you like warm food, Alex replied. Clara laughed kindly. Sweetheart, some of the best meals we've ever had were cold. Dom nodded. We once hiked 50 miles with nothing but cheese, apples, and bread. Cold can be delicious. Mr. Halston chimed in. And besides, a broken stove is a rite of passage for any cook. Is it? Alex asked. Oh yes, he said, adjusting his glasses. My wife once made an entire Thanksgiving dinner, using only a toaster oven and pure willpower. Everyone leaned forward immediately. Did it work? Talia asked. Eventually, he sighed. The turkey was, let's call it, optimistic. Laughter rolled across the cafe, warm and contagious, lifting the heaviness in Alex's chest. Alex rubbed the back of their neck. Well, I suppose we could do a no-cook menu. Sesame noodles, pickled vegetables, fruit tart, and maybe we cut fruit tableside, or slice cucumbers dramatically for effect. Mara clapped. Chef's table, cold edition. June snapped their fingers. I'm drawing that. In a rush of light energy, the cafe transformed. Alex set up the cold noodle station on the counter. The sesame sauce, nutty, salty sweet, flecked with garlic, was whisked until silky. The noodles were rinsed until cool and bouncy. The pickled vegetables came out of the fridge sparkling with colors. Ruby beets, golden carrots, emerald cucumbers. And the fruit tart, layers of berries, kiwis, and mandarins arranged in blooming spirals, looked like an edible stained glass window. People leaned over the counter to watch as Alex worked, offering unsolicited but affectionate advice. More sesame seeds. Ooh, spiral the cucumbers like a fern. Add a little honey drizzle. Yes, right there. Alex plated cold sesame noodles with surprising elegance. Each swirl landed softly, like a well-rehearsed dance move. Customers helped pass plates down the table, laughing every time someone's chopsticks clattered noisily. Talia took her first bite and sighed. If this is failure, please fail more often. I second that, Clara said, eyes sparkling. Dom pointed his fork. Chef, you've reinvented comfort food. Mr. Halston lifted a strip of pickled daikon. This reminds me of the summer my wife tried pickling everything in the house. Everything? June asked. He nodded gravely. Even plums. How were they? Potent. Alex leaned against the counter, cheeks warm, chest softening with relief. The disaster had become an opportunity, one they hadn't planned for, but one that tasted like freedom. They didn't need flawless execution to make people happy. They didn't need heat to create warmth. The stove might have been silent today, but the café was humming. By the time everyone finished eating, the fruit tart was reduced to a single glowing slice. Mara insisted Alex keep it for themselves. Chef privilege, she said with a wink. As they locked up that evening, Alex paused at the silent stove. Tomorrow, they said softly, patting it like a stubborn mule, we'll figure you out. But they didn't feel defeated. If anything, they felt buoyant, adaptable, supported, able to improvise when life threw curveballs or cold noodles. The cafe didn't need perfection. It needed presence. And Alex, despite the broken appliance and the unexpected chaos, had been fully, wonderfully present. Chapter 11, The First Frost. The first frost arrived overnight, brushing the cafe windows with delicate silver. Alex stood before the glass just after dawn, palm hovering above its chill. The world outside looked powdered in quiet magic. Rooftops dusted white, fallen leaves sealed in glimmering lace. The air had that unmistakable bite of early winter, the kind that made a person instinctively seek warm bowls and softer lights. Inside Hearth Hollow, Alex lit a few beeswax candles, their flames tiny suns against the cold. The cafe felt like a cocoon, wooden shelves glowing honey gold, the kettle puffing faint steam, the scent of barley simmering low and steady on the repaired stove. Today's dish had chosen itself, root vegetables, earthy and sweet, glazed in maple and roasted until they glistened. A meal for grounding, a meal for change. Alex chopped parsnips and carrots in unhurried rhythm. There was comfort in these winter roots, food that grows by holding firm beneath the soil, waiting out storms, biding its time until the world warms again. Alex understood that kind of patience, though they had not always practiced it well. A small rap sounded at the door before opening. June stepped inside, bundled in a scarf patterned with tiny foxes, their glasses immediately fogged. Cold enough to make my bones unionize, June muttered, shivering dramatically as they peeled off gloves. They blew into their hands, glancing around. Smells like you've declared winter officially here. Alex smiled. The vegetables insisted. June laughed, the sound puffing visible breath. They reached into their bag. Speaking of seasonal miracles, I brought you something. They placed a thin, stapled booklet on the counter. The cover was a hand-inked drawing of the cafe, rendered with June's signature whimsical strokes. Mismatched chairs, curling steam from a bowl, the bell above the door drawn as a tiny smiling ghost. The title read, Hearthlight, Issue Number 1. Alex blinked. Jun, is this your zine? Yep. June rocked on their heels, suddenly shy. It's sort of inspired by this place. By you. I've been sketching scenes, the quiet mornings, the regulars, the dishes you make. They helped me get through a rough creative block. So, this is a little thank you. Alex's chest tightened, warmth rising like steam under the ribs. They traced the illustrated windows with a finger. I don't know what to say. This is beautiful. Then say you'll stock it on the front counter, June said lightly, but their eyes gleamed with hope. Only if you want to. Of course I want to. Alex swallowed, surprised by how emotional they suddenly felt. I didn't know the cafe meant that much to you. June shrugged, cheeks pink, not just from the cold. Places that feel like home sneak up on people. They said it simply, without pressure, and somehow that made the words land deeper. Alex looked around their little cafe, the mismatched cups, the tea plants on the windowsill, the wooden tables they'd sanded by hand. It had changed so much since the first day. Fuller, softer, more lived in. And people kept bringing pieces of themselves here. Stories, laughter, quiet griefs, handmade art. Slowly, imperceptibly, Alex had become the keeper of a community. "Stay for lunch?" Alex asked. "I'm finishing the maple glaze." June grinned. "If you insist." Eto. They settled at the counter, sketchbook already open. Alex worked in companionable silence, the kind that felt like a slow-burning fire, the root vegetables caramelized in the oven, filling the cafe with a fragrance both sweet and woodsy. Outside, snowflakes began drifting in sparse, tentative flurries, winter's first handwriting. When Alex plated the dish, glistening roots atop herbed barley, Jun made an appreciative sound. "This looks like something a woodland spirit would serve." "I'll take that as a compliment," Alex said. June took a bite, eyes widening. "Okay, no, this tastes like walking into warmth after being outside too long." Alex laughed softly, but inside, something shifted, a small, sure recognition. They were making food that mattered to people. They were creating a place that mattered. The version of themselves who once sat under fluorescent office lights, burnt out and hollow, felt very far away, fading like breath on a cold window. Snow thickened outside, tracing gentle arcs. Jun kept eating, flipping through hearthlight with proud, nervous glances. Alex kept cooking, feeling the quiet click of belonging settle into place. Winter had arrived, but for the first time in years, Alex didn't feel the cold. Chapter 12. Homecoming. The snow began mid-morning, soft, hesitant flakes drifting down in a slow dance. Alex watched them from the cafe window, stirring the pot of chicken stew with long, unhurried motions. The broth steamed gently, perfumed with thyme and bay leaves, filling Hearth Hollow with the scent of comfort. It felt like a day for warmth, for thick socks and quiet music. Alex was ladling flour and herbs together for the dumplings when the door opened with a brittle jingle. A gust of cold air swept in, along with someone who stood frozen in the doorway, as if unsure whether they belonged. Riley. Alex's hands stilled. Their younger sibling pushed back their hood, shaking snowflakes loose. Their hair was shorter than Alex remembered. Their eyes held something cautious, almost fragile. "Hey," Riley said, voice rough. Alex exhaled a breath they didn't realize they were holding. "Hey." A long pause stretched, filled with unsaid years and the simmering stew. "Can I come in?" Riley asked. "You're already inside." Alex tried to smile, and it came out uneven. "But, yeah, of course." Riley stepped forward, glancing around the cafe as though it were a museum exhibit. "It looks nice, warmer than I pictured somehow, then quieter. I've been meaning to visit." "I wondered if you ever would," Alex admitted. Riley winced. "I know, I should have come sooner. Alex nodded. "Yeah, me too." They both stood there, two people carrying different halves of the same old hurt. Finally, Alex gestured toward the pot. "I was about to put dumplings in. You want to stay for lunch?" Riley's expression softened, just a little. "I'd like that." They sat at the counter while Alex worked, the way strangers sometimes do. Riley watched the dough being scooped into the simmering stew, each dumpling puffing slightly as it hit the heat. "I used to love when Grandma made this," Riley murmured. Alex paused, spoon hovering. "Yeah, me too." "Back then," Riley continued, eyes tracing the rising steam, "I thought when you grew up you'd cook all the time. You were always happiest in the kitchen." Alex let out a breathy laugh. "I forgot that for a while." Riley looked at them, hesitant. "I didn't. I just didn't know how to help when you started burning out. You looked so tired all the time, and angry, at everything." Alex's throat tightened. "I was scared. I thought I had to stay in engineering or I'd disappoint everyone, and then I pulled away from you because I didn't want you to see me falling apart." "You could have talked to me," Riley said, not unkindly. "Just sad. I know. I should have." And I should have tried harder to reach you, Riley added. I was angry too. I thought you didn't care. Alex set down the spoon and leaned against the counter. I cared. I just didn't know how to show it. For a moment, neither spoke. Snow continued drifting outside, softening the world. Riley's voice quieted. We both messed up, huh? Yeah, Alex met their eyes. But we were both hurting, and both trying to survive something we didn't know how to name. Riley nodded, a rare, vulnerable honesty on their face. Maybe we can do better now. The stew bubbled gently as if agreeing. When Alex served the bowls, thick broth, tender chicken, fluffy thyme dumplings, Riley cupped their hands around the warmth, as though thawing something deep inside. One bite in, their shoulders dropped. God, this tastes like home. Alex smiled, true and steady. That's the hope. Silence settled between them, but this time it was easier, softer, like two people learning each other again. Riley set their spoon down. I'm proud of you, you know. This place, it feels like you, in a way nothing else ever did. Alex blinked, heat prickling behind their eyes. Thank you. And I want to be around, Riley said. If you want that too. I do. The words came without hesitation. I really do. Outside, the snow thickened, gentle flakes drifting like blessings past the window. Inside, warmth pooled in the small café, settling in all the cracks where old hurt once lived. They finished their stew together, slowly, letting the flavors and the moment linger. It wasn't a perfect reunion, but it was honest. And it was a beginning, one simmered soft, like dumplings rising in broth. Homecoming, Alex realized, wasn't a return to the past. It was the courage to build something new. Together. Chapter 13, A Taste of Tomorrow. The final morning of the cafe's first year dawned with a pale gold hush, soft winter light slipping through clouds, touching the windows of Hearth Hollow like a blessing. Alex arrived early, boots crunching faintly over frost-tipped gravel, and unlocked the door to a space that felt not just familiar, but deeply lived in. The little cafe exhaled warmth, as though waking from a contented sleep. Chairs sat crooked from the night before. A thyme sprig lay forgotten near the sink. The wooden counter carried faint marks of flour, like memories etched into grain. These small imperfections were comforting, evidence of life happening day by day, meal by meal. Alex shrugged off their coat and draped an apron over their sweater. Today's dish was simple by design, a winter citrus tart, bright and fresh, like a quiet promise, and a pot of herbal tea, ginger, chamomile, a whisper of cardamom, to chase away the cold. Nothing elaborate, just honest, steady warmth. They began by zesting oranges, tangerines, and blood oranges, letting the ribbons of peel curl in fragrant piles. The sharp, sunny scent filled the room. It was almost startling against the muted winter air. 1 year, Alex thought. The realization fluttered through their chest like a small, glowing bird. 1 year since they'd quit everything. 1 year since they'd stood trembling in the empty building, wondering if they'd made the worst mistake of their life. Or had it? 1 year of simmering pots, of awkward small talk that grew into friendships, of laughter around the big table, and quiet tears shared over bowls of broth. 1 year of being alive, in a way engineering never allowed. Alex whisked eggs and citrus juice together, the liquid glowing like a sunrise. They poured it into the shell and slid the tart into the oven. As it baked, the cafe began to smell like sweet brightness, like hope warming from the inside out. The bell above the door chimed before opening time. "Alex, you here?" came a familiar voice. Nadine poked her head in, camera slung across her chest. Snow clung to her hair like tiny diamonds. "You're early," Alex laughed. "I figured you'd need someone to take a picture of the big day," she said, stepping inside. "Besides, the morning light is perfect right now." She didn't wait for permission before snapping a photo of Alex, dusted with flour, hands on the counter. Alex groaned. "Oh, don't even pretend," she teased. "You're radiating first anniversary energy. I don't even know what that means." "It means your eyes are doing that soft, proud sparkle thing." Alex rolled their own eyes, but warmth bloomed in their chest. Nadine wandered the cafe, capturing small details: the mismatched cups, the herb pots on the windowsill, the dent in the counter Alex kept forgetting to sand. She treated the cafe with the same reverence Alex felt while cooking: gentle, curious, full of love for the imperfections that made it real. June arrived next, bundled in a navy scarf, holding something wrapped in twine. "For you," they said shyly, handing it over. Inside was a small drawing. The cafe at night, windows glowing, steam curling from the chimney like a sleeping spirit's breath. Tiny characters, little blob-like creatures, peeked from behind the chairs and flower bags, a soft, secret magic. Alex touched the frame's edge with reverence. "This is beautiful, Jun." "Thank you." Jun grinned. "You inspired it. You inspire a lot of us." Before Alex could respond, the door opened again. Mr. Halston shuffled in, carrying a stack of well-loved cookbooks tied with a ribbon. "I thought," he began, adjusting his glasses, "that the cafe's library could use a little expansion." "Oh, Mr. Halston?" Alex murmured, touched. One by one, more regulars arrived. Mara the farmer with a jar of her best honey. Kai with a small tin of loose-leaf tea blended specially for the cafe. Talia, the violinist, carrying a newly composed melody written on folded staff paper. Each gift was tiny, handcrafted, imperfect. Each one radiated care. The 4 seats filled quickly, but people stood too, leaning against the counter, chatting in soft, contented voices. No one seemed in a hurry. The cafe hummed with a warmth, thick enough to settle on skin like a shawl. Alex sliced the tart, its filling shimmering like amber. They poured cups of the warm herbal blend, fragrant and calming. Laughter circled the room in gentle waves. "This is the brightest thing I've tasted all winter," Mara said, savoring a bite. "Like eating sunlight," Kai agreed. Talia lifted her cup. "To a year of warmth, and to more ahead." Nadine lifted her camera instead. "Hold that toast. Perfect." Alex felt their face flush. As the group talked, swapping stories of the year, Alex stood back for a moment. Not distant, just watching, absorbing. This little cafe, these mismatched chairs, this handful of souls, they were alive. Not in the busy, chaotic way Alex once thought success required, but in the quiet, steady way a hearth lives, with embers that never quite fade, with warmth that spreads slowly but surely. Once upon a time, Alex had thought stepping away from their career meant stepping away from meaning. But meaning had been waiting for them here, in sunlight tarts, in shared soups, in stories whispered over steaming mugs. Every dish had been a thread, and now, looking around, Alex saw the tapestry those threads had woven. Evening fell softly. One by one, the regulars drifted out with hugs and promises to return tomorrow. Snow settled thick on the ground, muffling the world into a peaceful hush. Alex cleaned the counters slowly, savoring the rhythm. They washed the last cup, dried their hands, and finally switched off the lights. For a heartbeat, just a breath, something glowed faintly in the kitchen, as though a warm ember pulsed inside the oven or behind the spice rack. A tiny, gentle shimmer. Not bright, not dramatic, just a quiet acknowledgement. A resting hearth spirit, satisfied with the year. Alex smiled at the glow, soft and private. "Good night," they whispered to the empty cafe. The glow faded, settling into darkness. But Alex knew it would be there again, tomorrow and the day after, and all the days they chose to keep cooking. They stepped outside. The air was crisp, the street silent under snowfall. And Alex felt full, not of fear or pressure, but of a deep, abiding peace. A taste of tomorrow, warm, bright, and theirs.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. Until next time, stay safe.